Hi guys, this is Hero. How's everyone doing today? आज बात है आज सब कैसे हो? And before I start, no, your eyes are not deceiving you. Okay, I finally did get a haircut and clean up my facial hair. Okay, after 3 months of not touching it at all. Now, the video title is something like Ketu True Understanding Part 2. Okay, you do not need to watch Part 1 in order to watch this. Okay, they're both independent videos. Like, it's not like this is dependent on that or it builds up off of that. Okay, although I would, if you're really trying to understand, Part 1 could provide some very unorthodox perspective that at the time I felt was necessary to share. Okay, so you can watch that. But Ketu is very hard to understand and things like that, so I needed to make a Part 2 that's a little bit easier to understand. Okay, or shines a little bit of a different perspective from a different angle. Okay, now Ketu, if you look at the Dasha system, it's sandwiched between two very material benefic planets, and that would be Mercury and Venus. Okay, in the whole system, these two are the biggest material benefics. Okay, and they orbit around the sun for a reason. Why? Because all sense, your sun is the identity, right? So all sense of ego, pleasure, anything like that, it has to come from one of these two places for the most part, or an overwhelming majority of it comes from these two places, right? Mercury and Venus. Now, why do we have Ketu right in the middle, right? And the reason why this is important of why we have Ketu right in the middle is because it helps you understand what it's trying to accomplish, right? Most people, and including myself, only talk about the fact that, oh, Venus comes after Ketu because you're not going to enjoy the stuff in Venus if you didn't go through the suffering of Ketu, right? And although that's true, that's a very elementary level thing. And like I said, I've said it myself too, so I'm not really excluded from this group. But it's time to shine, light on the bigger picture here and what's going on, okay? So you have Mercury, right? And Mercury comes before Ketu. Okay, now why? Okay, if you look at the two planets, Mercury and Venus, Mercury is the one that's closer to the sun. Okay, so without getting too much into Mercury, and I might get into this more later after I lay down some groundwork, but Mercury is the one out of the two, Venus and Mercury, out of the two, Mercury is the one that can cause more suffering. Okay, and that is why it it's closer to the sun, and that's also why it owns 3 and 6, right? And if you look from a house perspective, 3 and 6 are not really two of the best ones, right? I would probably say after 12 and 8, those two come right up next, and they're both owned by the same planet, okay? So although Mercury has a lot of potential to give a lot of fruits, a lot of, positive things, material things, we love material things, it can also give a lot of suffering, okay? And this plays a very key role in why Ketu comes next, right? So now moving on to Ketu, right? So in Mercury, you get a lot of stuff, right? Or you could get a lot of stuff, right? Material stuff. Material success is it could be very high, right? But what could also be very high? Your level of attachment, your level of suffering, all this kind of stuff, okay? In Mercury, yes, you could enjoy to an extent, but it's more of an enjoyment of a pride or an ego or an accomplishment, right? Not like a Venus enjoyment where it's more of an actual enjoying people's companionship or just enjoying pleasures at more of a finer level or just at a more simplistic level in the way it is, right? With Mercury, it's more a very show-offy kind of thing. Okay, you could get the same two things, or in theory, let's just say someone gets a really nice car or goes out to dinner to a really nice restaurant in Mercury, and somebody gets a really nice car, goes out to a really nice dinner in Venus. The same two things could affect the two people differently in the different dashas, right? In Mercury, it's going to be more of your superficial value kind of getting built up, you feel better than everybody, right? There's a little bit of rational enjoyment that comes with it, appreciating, let's just say the way the car was built or the way somebody arranged your food on the plate or something like that. But a lot of it's more of a mental thing, and a lot of it's more like a conquering thing, like a you feel more valuable kind of thing, right? Versus in Venus, it feels more of like, you know, you're really enjoying the smaller details about it, and it's giving you more genuine joy, right? So yes, you have these two very long benefic periods, right? But Ketu, and I'm at 5 minutes, so I'm gonna transition to Ketu here for the most of the rest of the time. Ketu here is the thing that gets you from this very superficially focused energy to this very simplistic energy, right? That's one perspective I'll give you for right now, right? It's in charge of taking whatever was built up here and specifically, because see, all the dashas come in an order for a very specific reason, right? And they all kind of have a purpose, right? Like, for example, after your Rahu of illusions comes Jupiter, which is all about learning, and then after you learn from it, then Shani comes to where you can act on that newfound wisdom that you have, right? Here, you're able to, from Mercury, you're able to, you know, use your brain and, you know, feel good and accomplish a lot, right? But in order to truly enjoy it, you need to strip away all the ego identification with your success, and some people might be, oh, I'm not that, you know, wealthy and stuff. It's not really about that, right? Anything you could be surprised on the tiniest of little things, right? And this is why some people have more of, you know, an extreme Ketu than others, right? It's in charge of stripping away the identification, basically, that you formed, or the attachment that you formed in Mercury, right? It could be things like, you know, you've accomplished X, Y, and Z, and so you feel like, you know, this person in the community, right? So in order to enjoy whatever you've actually accomplished, Ketu is saying, oh, well, you know, all the, you know, the fake relationships you've built kind of off of fake energies and things like that, we're gonna rip it apart, and it's not serving us anything here, right? Your identifications are gone. Anything that you've also over attached to, right? Like, for example, it could be like, I live in this certain place, right? A lot of people, they're very attached to where they live, right? And it could be very specific, right? Like the certain state they live in, the community they live in, the area in the community they live in, the people that they talk to in the community, right? Anything that's not really serving you at a superficial level, and it's serving you more at a let me rephrase. Anything that's not serving you at a spiritual level and serving you more at a superficial level, the Ketu will say it's no good to us, right? And this is so that you can actually learn to enjoy life from the stuff that you built in Mercury, right? This is why Ketu is so unpredictable, by the way, because see, two people can have the same things, and one person can receive that more in a spiritual way, and one person can receive that more in a superficial way, right? Like, for example, one person can get a really good friend, and, you know, in Mercury, and that friend could be more of like you know, at some spiritual level they're helping them, and at same, you know, another friend could be more, you know, from like a superficial level, they're not that, you know, I mean, they're more superficially based and things like that, right? So for one person, it could take away, you know, a lot of your friends, and for one person, it could keep a lot of your friends, right? So you might be wondering, okay, like, is Ketu going to take away my friends? Is it not, right? And a lot of this is based off of like your subconscious attachments, right? If you're very aware about your subconscious attachments, you're probably going to be very aware of what could happen during Ketu, right? And sometimes Ketu could give you things, right? It's not like it can't give you things, right? A lot of the times people like to, you know, like think like, oh, you know, certain combinations can give you versus, and you know what, that is great. You can try to do all the calculations you want. Very good, easy way to simplify that is just to, if it's for you, right? For somebody else, that's a different story, right? But Ketu is very personal planning, okay? If it's for you, right? And I'm assuming you're watching this because it's for you. You're not trying to look at somebody else, or it's somebody very close to you to where you know a decent amount of what's happening in their life. You can kind of understand. You can pick if it's like an immediate family member, even if it's not yourself. You can kind of pick up, which one of your siblings or kids' friends are fake and stuff like that, or what they're overly attached to, but just based off of their speech and the way they talk about certain things in their life and things like that, right? Like if they have a certain car or job or whatever, right? Based off of these things, anything in general that you're overly attached to, it'll take, and it might not take it to a certain level. Like it might not take it away as drastic as it would somebody else, right? Like, for example, one person can be really attached to their car, right? And, one day they'll just crash it or it'll break down or something like that, right? But, the way at which it plays out is very different. Let me give you another example, right? Let's just say somebody's very attached to their body, right? A very extreme example would be, somebody like really breaking something to the point where an extreme would be like in a wheelchair, but like at least something to where like it's noticeable on the outside, right? But a little bit of a less extreme could be like, and I've seen it like a gym injury, right? To where like, okay, like that injury, it's something like very Ketu-ish in the sense that like it's something like drastic that can't be undone, but it's not like end all be all. It's not like, every single person that passes you on the street is going to judge you like as if you would be unfortunately in a wheelchair or something like that, right? So, and these kind of level of things, again, your karma is going to come a lot into play, and you could try to, justify it however you want from the birth chart, okay? But in general, the more detachment you do, the easier it will be, okay? And it's not just general detachment, right? Don't let anybody tell you, during this period, again, there's like a million asterisks here, but like during this period, what you need to detach from, right? You will know what you need to detach from because it's usually things that you're not trying to detach from, right? Like it could be your job, right? Like, oh, I have this job, right? What happens if, AI just takes your job, right? Then, good luck. Or somebody just comes in, some hotshot from college and just takes your job, right? Like, and it will force you to do something or not have this dependency so that you can actually enjoy life, right? Because these fears are holding you back, right? Mercury, the planet before, is a very fearful planet in nature, right? It's always overthinking, right? This is why when Venus is in Mercury's main sign, Virgo, it's debilitated, right? You literally cannot enjoy life if you are always overthinking. Okay, so Ketu is kind of taking away this overthinking, right? Your fears are subconsciously causing suffering in your life, right? So Ketu is to anything you're really scared of. I'm not saying Ketu is just going to make all your worst nightmares come true, right? But it will make you really come to reality or come to your senses on your fears, and that they're not as grand as your mind has them to be, right? At the end of the day, even if your fears do come true, you're gonna move on. And when I mean you, I mean your spirit, your soul. You get fired, you get cheated on by your girlfriend or boyfriend, you end up in a wheelchair, I'm not saying these things have to happen, right? But if some level of something happens that kind of forces you to really acknowledge this fear, or your whole family abandons you, your house burns down, whatever, right? And like I said, your house doesn't have to burn down, right? Maybe you have like a mice infestation or something like that, right? But that kind of forced you to really detach from your house, right? I'm not saying this is obviously going to be the exact example, but things will happen to force you to detach from the stuff, basically the junk and the clutter that came with that with that Mercury, right? Mercury usually has a tendency to bring a lot of good things, like I said, right? It's a material benefic, right? But it has a tendency to also bring a lot of junk mentally, right? A lot of attachment, a lot of ego, a lot of pride, a lot of this, arrogance, whatever, right? Ketu will very efficiently, one by one, and what I mean one by one, I mean through each antardasha cause antardasha cause certain things to go, right? And the first thing it's up at bat is your Ketu Venus, right? So any sort of little fling or crush that you've been just holding around for too long, you can kiss that shit goodbye in your Ketu Venus, right? Ketu Sun's gonna really just hammer your sense of identity, right? Ketu Moon, it's gonna make your emotions feel like it's gonna get you to detach from your emotions, right? And so on and so forth, right? Until the end, okay? But that's the goal here, okay? It's not a monster, right? It's not some I know in the scriptures it's a demon, but it's not. I hope you see the purpose now from this, right? It's you were already suffering before. This is just forcing you to face the suffering so that it goes, right? In a lot of my videos, I say, whatever you resist persists, right? Just because you've resisted this stuff before does not mean that it has not persisted. It's persisted. And now Ketu's saying, okay, it's been here long enough, all this attachment, all this stuff. In order for us to really enjoy life, it's gotta go. It's gotta go, right? And it might be scary because, some people are gonna judge you. A lot of people, if you go through a Ketu Dasha, a lot of people are gonna say, oh my God, you're so different, blah, blah, blah. And this is all part of it, right? You don't need to keep anybody around. You don't need to, and here's the other thing, right? If I were to give one tip for people in the Ketu Dasha also, see, when it comes to your things in life, it's very easy to let them go and come, right? But relationships with people is usually a little bit complicated, okay? Just because you were best friends with somebody before, we love to live in extremes. The ego loves to live in extremes, right? And Ketu will kind of try to teach you, just because we were best friends before does not necessarily mean we need to be best friends now, or it does not mean that we need to just completely cut them off and ghost them now, right? We could just be genuine, good friends that have known each other for a while and that will support each other in, down the road in life, right? You don't need to be, whatever you guys were before, but it's not like you guys need to turn into, complete strangers. And, when you guys have been best friends and then, it kind of just dies away and it's awkward, right? Ketu's trying to teach you, this whole awkward thing, it's a very new age, like, material kind of thing, right? It does not need to be like this, right? You can still appreciate your friendships even if you guys have, as people, have, possibly become different people and don't possibly enjoy the same activities that you guys used to do or enjoy having the same conversations that you guys used to do, right? You guys can still be very supporting friends and, not just meet up, in some sort of fixed frequency, just out of formality or whatever, right? It doesn't need to be like that, right? And as far as career goes, I mean, in general, Ketu, that's the thing a lot of people care about, right? Your relationships and money, right? And just a real quick about the relationships, right? Since I covered friendships, as far as your relationship goes, this is why I always preach in my videos. Emotional satisfaction should not be the basis for any sort of lifelong relationship, right? It should be, something rational is there, right? Because you're going to, how you feel about the person is going to change. I promise it will change in 10, 20 years. Okay, I promise. I can promise for 99% of you, okay? If there is some rational basis, some sort of actual genuine respect about the other person, that can build up. And what Ketu could be trying to teach you is, hey, whatever ego identification we had with this person, that's not a great foundation. It doesn't necessarily mean that we need to cut the person off, we need to split, whatever, especially if it's a long-term thing. But we have to change the way, we operate, the way we view each other, right? Or like that kind of stuff, right? Now, some people, unfortunately, they can't handle it and they need to find somebody new, although the same things will come up with the new person. And sometimes I get it. It's necessary, whatever. But a lot of the times it's not. Okay? I'll say that. Now, with your job and stuff like that, right? Because I got to go over each little thing. Your Ketu is probably not, there to give you, multi-millions of dollars, right? Even if it is, it probably it's rooted in some basis of detachment. Okay, now a lot of people, they don't need more money to detach, okay? But some people do, right? Some people, some people just do for various reasons, right? Like some people, they might need more relationships possibly to detach, something like that, right? To overcome certain fears, to insecurities, whatever, right? This is where Ketu can give stuff, right? But as far as your job and stuff goes, in general, even if you do get more money, it's going to make you grow spiritually. Okay, so if you need a really great life to grow spiritually, Ketu will give it. Okay, but if you don't, and most likely somehow let's just say you do get a lot of money or something like that, it'll come with like this hidden suffering that like that lesson could only have been learned with the money you got somehow or something like that, right? Like I'll give you an example. Let's say, because you got some money, you decided to take on more responsibilities, and the responsibilities were necessary, but a little bit more than you anticipated, and you can kind of see how now, you just added a whole bunch to your plate, right? And it's like you weren't going to do that unless you started making more money, something like that, right? Or maybe the money caused you to get into this relationship for whatever reason, and then now, but like if it wasn't for that, this would have never happened, and then you would have never learned certain lessons, things like that. Okay, that's it for the video. I think we're good. We're good here at a little past 20 minutes. I hope you guys kind of understood Ketu a little bit deeper. Okay, I kept it more at a general level, especially from the last time. I also have a separate Ketu Dasha video if you want to watch that. And I think I made a video specifically on the beginning of Ketu, right, and how that drastic change from the Shani Antardasha at the end of Mercury jumping to Ketu. Okay, but that's it for this video. If you have any questions or comments, you can feel free to let me know. And until next time, I'll talk to everyone later. Thank you all very, very much for watching.